which has just started, and you're the head of incubation, correct, Maren?
Yeah, we just started an incubator right on time.
Right. Right on time, yes. So basically, she has the expertise and the knowledge to help you in the healthcare sector, and from a business perspective, to really work on your pitch. So I would suggest we should wait a couple of minutes more, maybe 5 minutes. How would you like to do this, Maren? Should we ask everybody who's here, since it's an intimate circle, to present themselves as well? Would you like that, or?
Yeah, that would be good. Especially also to get some feedback on how far are you? Have you ever done a presentation? Because again, I think the presentation of what you're working on is today, and most of you have structured some thoughts already, and I think that would be good. Maddie, do you want to start?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Maddie. I'm from Italy. With our team, the survivors, we structured our presentation, but I don't have much experience in this. I'm a medical, I'm a doctor, so I'm not exactly of the field. Still our presentation is an embryonal state, I would say.
I like the embryo state that you said. Very medical. After that session, if you need some help, just reach out to me via Slack, and we can actually go over your presentation if this is what you need.
Yes, thank you.
So all good. I mean, we give tips and tricks, but at the end, it's very individual on the individual slides or individual questions. So yeah. Just go ahead, and thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
So Giorgio, just because I see your face now.
Do you want to go next, Giorgio? We present ourselves and what we're working on. So Maren knows, while we're waiting also for more people to join, Maren knows you guys, and she can also guide you better.
Good evening.
Like, what are you working on, and how far is your pitch? And what kind of support do you need?
I think we're close as a team. My team is on the field of drug-dependent people, and we're trying to build a platform where everyone can contact us from their home, so they can get their medicines, their training, etc.
So, if in terms of presenting what you're working on, are you comfortable? What stage are you in? Do you have some content already?
Yes. It's something we're we're thinking about it the last year.
Okay.
So I think we have.
So you didn't start a couple of days ago, you have a head start?
No, we didn't came up with the idea this week.
Okay. Very good. So if you have any questions, as I said, just also hit me afterwards if you have questions on the presentation. So same goes for all the rest of you. If you want to say anything, if you want to give me some ideas on what you've been working on, how the pitch looks like, just let me know.
Maren. Thank you very much, Maren, for helping the teams.
Oh no, I mean, this is what I do on a regular basis. It's not just about doing something great. It's about telling other people and making people understand that you do great stuff. And it's not about the perfect pitch. It's about a combination of, what you're working on must be good and interesting and exciting, but also the people you talk to must understand what you're working on and the excitement and the impact it can create. Elena, you want me to jump in the presentation to give you some do's and don'ts and some advice, and I hope you also all know the setup of the presentation, like the 3 minutes and 2 minutes Q&A. Are you aware of that?
They know. The main deadline for us is to submit their video tomorrow. Yeah. And basically the way that we are structuring this time, the procedure is that you need to submit your video by 3 p.m. I believe it's the time, 3 or 4, I have to check. And then basically afterwards, the kickoff starts at 6. and we will select 15 proposals from them, 50 projects. So the main important thing is submit a very good video. And then once you submit it, then out of those 15 projects, they will pitch. And yes, it's 3 minutes to pitch and 2 minutes for Q&A.
How long is the video?
The video is 2 minutes.
Not
So
too bad.
this is the procedure, yes.
So
Anyone else wants to say hi as well? Let's see, Panagiotis, Thanasis, and Gnomon Informatics.
Yes. Could I say hi?
Yes,
yeah,
of
sure.
Yeah, okay. So this project with this, which is on data analytics, and I think I participated with a team that has something already done, and I want to add some things. Unfortunately, I don't see the captain of my team, but the case is that yes, for me it's tricky thing. This for 2 minutes for a data analytics project. So what we should focus on and what is important and how you make a good pitch in 2 minutes. Any help on that will be very useful.
Yeah. I think in general, it's always a question what to focus on and what to do. The good thing is about when you do a presentation and try to show a live demo, you know, everything can happen. If you prepare a video, you can do the video a couple of times till it works. And you can also, actually also, if you have the time to take, let's say 2 or 3 videos from different angles, and, you know, also feel free to ask, you know, do you actually get what we are working on? Is that kind of understandable for you? What do you think? So if you have the time, you can actually do 2 or 3 tests, A/B testing, and then also submit the one you think is the best, because it's never the first shot that works in the video, that's for sure. I can tell you. And I did a couple of presentations, also a couple of videos. And depending on the audience, it's always perceived in a way different way. So this is also something that I always recommend. You know, check out who is checking the videos and who is in the jury, because you also have to keep in mind what's the background knowledge they have. And if you have a very data-driven project, do they truly understand all the terms you're using? What's the kind of person that actually sees the video? This is something that for sure, this is a question you should definitely ask if you don't have the answer, because it all comes down to, you know, also finding the right words and the right narrative to make people understand, besides, you know, having an amazing in-depth technological product. But if a person that is watching the video or listening to the pitch doesn't understand that, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's always a mix you have to keep in mind. Are you aware of all the people that watch the video and give feedback and the jury?
No, I'm not. I don't know if this information is available now. Who is going to assess the video about?
Yeah, because
Yes.
Elena's joining, so they know.
Yes, we actually have this information, but we haven't communicated yet. So we have two selection jury, so two judges, let's say 2 groups of judges. So the first one who's going to be looking at the pre-selected submissions. Right now we have 54 teams working, so we expect at least about 25 or 30 submitting their final project. And this jury would consist of 10 different individuals coming from different backgrounds, all of them quite senior and experts from healthcare, from IT, from legal. We will share with you the list of all of them. I can also tell you now if you're very curious and want to know, but we'll definitely share the list today. That's a very good tip that Marin gave already, that it will be good to think about the people looking at your project and how would they perceive it. And then afterwards, for the second round, so the 15 project pitches, there will be 8 people that have been selected, coming from representing different ministries. So the Ministry of Digital Governance in Greece, the Ministry of Healthcare, the Ministry of Research and Development. So there's going to be a lot of people coming with an IT background or a healthcare background that will come and look at these pitches. We also have people from the industry, so people who are coming directly from hospitals. So the CIO of Evangelismos will be there as a judge, among others. So you should be considering that your application will be looked at from people who are actually right now the front line of this situation, of this issue in Greece, and they're dealing with it on the daily life. So they really want to find and see of a solution that is applicable as soon as possible on the one hand, and that they can easily be used, basically, in a national level, but also in a global level, I would say. And then at the same time, think that these people are working as well, from the same perspective, like either in healthcare or in IT or in business, and they also have develop similar solutions. So they know to ask the right questions, and they know what to look for in order to understand your product and what you're developing from this hackathon. On this note, I think that maybe Maren, you want to kickstart your presentation now.
Yeah, it applies to a lot of different elements. If you see it this way, it's not just the video, but any slide deck or any topic that we go for. Just let me see if I can actually start the presentation. Do you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Then I make you smaller. So what I've done in the past is I have a communications background, and I helped CEOs to find the right wording and also avoid tricky questions when editors and also customers have been asking these questions. And when I started working for startups 10 years ago, it's basically the similar situation. It's just called pitch coaching and not presenting anymore as it used to be years ago. And at the end, the same methods apply. And by the way, the same methods apply also if you have a video or a different kind of situation. I'd like to walk you through a little do's and don'ts, and feel free to ask questions as well. And also feel free to reach out to me on Slack, for instance, for scheduling individual sessions or getting some feedback. So let me see if it works. Pitch formats. Basically, what you did right now is you gave me a Hollywood pitch. When I asked, what are you working on? You said one sentence or even like 10 to 60 second sentence, and you explained to me what you have been working on. This is exactly two forms of pitching that are super common. Whenever somebody asks you, what do you do? And this is the same what you had in the beginning of the hackathon when you formed pitches, teams, and had to explain what you're working on. Everybody wanted to know, so what exactly are you working on? A lot of people don't.
Καλά, εδώ πέρα έχουμε το pitching session τώρα.
But
το οποίο ξεκίνησε. Ναι, και πες.
Έλα.
Μίλησα με τον Αρκαντώνη του Καρόκη και είπαμε το εξής. Θα του στείλω εγώ σήμερα, πρότεινα να κάνουμε το εξής. Ότι διαλέγουμε τρεις καλές προτάσεις, τις ξεχωρίζουμε και τους ζητάμε σε 2 εβδομάδες να τις ολοκληρώσουν. Και αν τις ολοκληρώσουν, θα πάρει την πρώτη 5.000.
Okay, this works. Good.
Guys, I just realized what I did. I'm so sorry.
I don't speak Greek, so I don't know what you have been talking about, Elena, just to make it easy for you. But yes, so Hollywood pitching and also elevator pitching is something that I always highly recommend to practice, because you might know that the attention span of a human being gets smaller and smaller and smaller, also based on cell phones and the way we work. So now the attention span of a human being is actually less than the attention span of a goldfish. If you have the finger on the tank and the goldfish is moving around, this could be a game that you play for 15 seconds. A human being will lose interest after 10 seconds. So if the Hollywood pitch and the elevator pitch are like 10 to 15 seconds, this is basically the time you have to raise interest. It also applies, by the way, to videos, to social media posts, and also to any kind of pitching. What we do is a presentation after you jumped over the hurdle with a video. And these kind of presentations are usually the ones you're familiar with. And most of the time at conferences or in sessions, it's between 1 to 10 minutes. Normally it's between 3 to 5, also because keep in mind, especially also when you have the situation like this, you have 25 to 30 presentations, the last 15 will present via Zoom. It also means there are 15 different topics, and the jury has to understand and process the topics and the stories in their brain. And the more time you have, the more information has to be processed. And it's also quite hard if you have a kind of competition and competitive environment, and it's very fast paced, and you squeeze as many information as possible into 5 minutes. Just keep in mind that the human brain from the jury will not be able to actually process everything in detail that you have been working on, maybe not just for 2 days, but for a couple of weeks. Then most of you also know, in a classic environment, from a startup point of view, it's called the investor pitch, but any kind of other presentation after such a session that will be shared with others, doesn't have the advantage of you talking and explaining, but needs to stand on its own. So you don't have a narrative, which also means after the session, if the jury says, "Hi, I'm super interested in what you're working on, can you share not just the video, but the slide deck or what you told us again?" And they said, "Can you do it within the next 2 days?" You should be aware that just handing over the documents you worked on might not be enough. You might have to explain exactly what something means that you would do in person, with your voice. This is something that they don't have. So keep that in mind. If you see the process of kind of information flow with the people that they care about what you're working on. What all these elements have in common, and also the video you have been working on or will work on, is, of course, you want to create an emotional attachment. You want to create passion by the other person. They should be eager to work with you. They need to feel a certain kind of attention. Keep in mind, if there are like even 30 videos they have to watch, it's a long time. You have to stick out in a way. And at the end, what you also want to have is that leads to action. In the case of the video, of course, the action would be, give us a chance to present more. What Elena also mentioned is that there are people that work on the front line. So even in the video, they need to understand what's the applicability of the solution, what problem are you tackling, and this is something they could actually use right away or in the close future. So this is something you shouldn't overlook in what you're doing. So not just explain the technical aspects, but also at the end finish with a strong, as we call it, call for action. What happens now? Why do you need support from these people? If we move a little bit more into what a good structured pitch looks like, I'm not a huge fan of, claiming a perfect pitch, because I've seen a lot of pitches that were perfect and they didn't create any emotion, perfect from a technical point of view. But then I've seen vulnerable pitches with mistakes that made people laugh and smile and have a good time and feel kind of attached to it. And this was something that, from my point of view, is even more successful than, a super pretty pitch that is from the craftsmanship, has beautiful slides or, the perfect narrative or the perfect presentation. So also think a little bit what is success for you and, what's perfection for you. And don't necessarily compare with all the others. You have to be kind of self-centered and have to be happy with what you're presenting, because it's your idea, it's your product, it's your team. The 4 challenges you have to cover, and we are going a little bit into that, and we also touched a little bit on that. So of course it is the content and the slides. If you work with PowerPoint or if you work with video, you truly have to think about, what can I squeeze in 2 minutes video? How do I have to explain certain things? Having an expert group watching the videos and also listening to the pitches is very good, because you don't have to go too much into detail in certain elements. And I'm quite sure you can also check with Elena and her team and like how understandable certain things are, or you can also bounce it back to me. The second one, of course, is the narrative. For the video, of course, you also have to kind of understand, how do I technically set that up? Do I have a narrative? Do I record via Zoom? How I move through slides? Do I animate stuff? What do I do? And again, also, what can I do in 2 minutes? How do I have to explain certain things? The situation that you don't have for the video is the Q&A, but this is something that you will have later on. If you have a 3-minute presentation and a 2-minute Q&A session, it also means nearly the same time, completely 2 minutes, you have to add additional information to create a conversation, a dialogue with the jury. So also I recommend to prepare for the Q&A. And what I've seen in previous online pitching sessions is that also the remaining team supports the Q&A session. So if you see about presenting, it's usually 1 or 2 people maximum, but I know your teams are way bigger. But just, you know, having too many people and too many movement in a presentation, it's very hard for the eye and the ear to process everything from a jury point of view. But for a Q&A session, for sure, you can also bring additional team members on board. And what's very important for everything, have the clear action in mind afterwards, what you want to achieve. Is there a jury member that you really want to work with? Do you need financial support? Do you need data? Do you need additional team members? This is your time to actually, after working on the project, to, you know, summarize at the end what will happen afterwards and what you need to make it happen. 3-minute pitching, as I mentioned, it's actually, from my point of view, a good timing. You will feel that it's too little, but keep in mind, you have a 2-minute video that takes a lot of time to actually process again, and then a 3-minute presentation. Even if you only have 2.5 minutes of presentation, it's super cool, because then you will have 2.5 minutes of Q&A, and you can actually explain in a dialogue situation even better what you do. So I would always highly recommend to take the time also seriously, because again, there will be a competitive edge to that. And after 3 minutes, you will be cut off. Practice and also try to figure out if with the content you have, 3 minutes are possible. And don't go for 3.5 and think you rush and make it work when the time comes. Usually pitches are a little longer, because in the beginning it takes some time to set up. You know, you have to move into that. And what usually happens is that even when you practice 3 minutes, you will most likely end up with like 3:20, 3:30, just because there's a little bit more pressure and a little bit more excitement associated in real life. And the normal kind of practice situation has your own laptop, your own tech environment. As soon as you do stuff like this, you know, sharing your screen, there might be an issue. The screens might move around, something doesn't look right. So be prepared for, I would say, 2.5, 2:40. So you have a little time to also set that up. So let's go a little bit into what's the content and the story should look like, because it's also something that we touched a little bit in the beginning. And you will see that the people that have been in the jury or also watched the videos, they have seen a couple of presentations before, and they clearly know what they're looking for. So the normal structure of a pitch is based on a few elements. So they also expect that these elements will be inside the pitch. Of course, out of all the categories and the challenges that there are, you also have to kind of explain which challenges you're tackling. And as Elena said, the jury that sees the presentation and the jury that watches the video are different people. So don't build on, well, they have seen my video, so they most likely know what I do. This is not the case. Of course, it's very important to explain what's the impact, what do you want to reach, how many people do you want to support, what's the mission you have in mind. How does the solution look like? What are you working on? Is it applicable? Is there something that can be executed right away? How far are you? In that sense, there will also always be a question, and this is also the question I ask, how much did you bring into the hackathon? How long have you been working on that project? Or how steep was the learning and the development curve in the last few days? So be prepared for such a question, because in every single hackathon, I had that question. And I think it's also important to get a better understanding about the maturity of the solution. Feasibility, is it something that is feasible? Is it something that can be introduced? And again, keep in mind there are people working in the front line, so they really want to also understand, do you understand their daily life? Do you understand how this solution can be seamlessly integrated? How much time does it take? Again, we also looking for solutions that can solve a problem now and not in kind of 6 or 10 months from now. So keep that in mind. I think you also have to explain. Of course, it's always interesting to see what is a team, kind of who has been working on that. And as I said before, ask and intro are very important at the end, because they also need to understand, so what are the next steps? What do you need to make it happen? On the right side, impact, innovation, applicability, feasibility, and execution. These will be the topics that the jury is aiming for. They clearly need to understand how do you measure, like how do you stand in these 5 areas. So keep that in mind. What you see here is there's no business model, and there is also no financial projection, because I think what you clearly see now is a topic that is not focusing on we create a solution to make money, but we create a solution to have an impact and have a sustainable solution that can be financed and can have an impact, but it's not necessarily a money-making project. So keep that in mind. Making money is not bad, but in that sense, and this is what you might have seen in other presentations, especially from startups that focus a lot on the business model. Business model is not necessarily what the jury will be aiming for. So keep the timing in mind, as I mentioned. A little tip from my side, what I do when I practice, I actually have a team member that calculates a little bit and takes the time and says, so how many seconds did I use for the problem? How many seconds did I use for impact and innovation? Where am I running out of time if time is tight? Because at the end, what will happen is, if you spend a lot of time on impact, innovation, and execution, you won't have any time for the ask, the outro, and the team, because it will be cut at the end. So you have to kind of manage your time in the beginning to have time at the end. And this is something that it's not so easy. So I highly recommend to have some timekeeper. If you practice this once or twice in a similar situation that we will have here, just keep in mind that it's easier for you than also figure out, maybe you have to cut a little bit time and impact to have more time at the end for the team. Some do's and don'ts. So storytelling, we are moving a little bit into that later on. Keep in mind, a lot of people like me are sitting in front of a very small screen. So if you have very packed slides, a lot of information, it will be hard to process. Sometimes the technical environment is also not the easiest. This is the reason why I try to have simple slides and check, if the format works, if you have screenshots, if it can be really written and read and processed, or is it too small? And again, keep in mind that the guys have to watch, have to read, have to listen to you, maybe also have to make notes. There's a lot of things a person has to do while listening to you explaining what is quite clear in your head. Homogeneous look would be good, font size, color, everything that is very different in a presentation, in a video, raises awareness, but it also means that the brain is defocusing and trying to figure out processing change. Every visual kind of element that is different will lead to the brain focusing on that. And if you have one element on the slide that is always drawing attention, so if you see the red triangle on the upper red side, this is something, for instance, that will always draw attention because it's red. The remaining content on the slide might get lost because the eye will automatically go to the signal color in the text. Too much text, as I said, complexity, try to find a balance, who's listening, what's missing. And then again, dialogue. Keep in mind that, you have to explain actively where the jury members and partners can move in. I assume you all want to make your solution happen. So you actively also have to explain in which kind of touch points there will be an opportunity for somebody else, a partner or a new team member, to jump in. A little bit on visualization. We're all visual learners, more or less. So it's amazing how easier it is if you have a picture for the brain to process it. And the human brain is just 90% of information is visual. So we remember pictures, text super hard, but pictures are very strong. So keep that in mind when you structure the video and also the slides. And again, just keep in mind the more visual support you use, the faster you can also explain a story, because visual data is processed so much faster than text, because I don't need the time to read. I can actually process everything in one look. And again, pictures are also very strong for storytelling. Storytelling, might have heard about it. It's actually something that is used quite often. It's basically, as it said, telling a story, creating visual pictures in a person's head by not having the pictures. So we try to mirror. So we try to explain something that the person might have experienced herself or know, and you instantly see the doctor in the hospital, struggling with a certain thing. Neural coupling is you also try to activate the audience. Well, they also had the idea, isn't it something that you talked about or thought about it all the time? And it's also something that creates some chemical reactions in the brain and makes people happy, and also emotionally attached to what you do. So you always need the dialogue, the attachment. And this is something, again, that you can do quite nicely with the video. Storytelling intros. And I hope this is something that you can very much build on. Having like 4 formats are quite common. The first one is Imagine Max. It's kind of, you describe a situation by a kind of persona like Max, a person that everybody knows and understands. It could be a nurse in a hospital, and everybody can imagine what a nurse is suffering right now. So imagine there is a nurse in a hospital, and this is her problem, and this is how we're going to solve the problem. This is one kind of angle to start. Second one, different one is we tell your own story. So explain what you are kind of experienced, if you are in a medical field, if you might have family members and friends in a situation that you want to solve. People having mild symptoms, people worrying about facts and figures, not sure what to do. Interaction with the audience is something that is very hard online. It's a third way to do it. It's usually the situation where in an offline event, you ask the audience, have you experienced that? And then people raise their hand. This creates an immediate bond between you and the people sitting there, because also everybody sees, well, it's not just you. There are like out of 500 people, 400 hands up. So 400 people have the same problem. Theater style is very complicated. It could work in a video is that you kind of reenact the situation. You use a kind of movie element to have a kind of flashback and explain exactly how it normally looks. How does it usually look in such a situation? You actually have 2 people of your team that present to be like a doctor and a nurse, for instance, or a nurse and a patient. Very hard to do. I wouldn't recommend that, but the other 3 options, I think, give you a lot of opportunity to start a strong presentation. Keep in mind who's sitting in front of you. This is always important. It's not just creating like lots of buzzwords, but finding the right words to make them understand in a short period of time what you're really working on. What's always super important, I think, is if you explain what is your background. Whoever is presenting in a video or in a pitch situation, take a little second and explain who you are, so they clearly also understand who is talking to them. And if you, let's say, have a similar profession or a similar background like the jury, for sure they will understand that whenever you use a word, a complex topic, that you know what you're talking about. This is, I think, something that is quite important. If you have started with the project quite a long time ago, I think you don't have to explain what you have been working on for like 6 months. But you also don't have to explain in the last 48 hours how often you pivoted, how often you changed, but use it as an opportunity to explain a little bit, why did you maybe change, or what was the original idea you started. But keep in mind, you don't have enough time to actually go back too much. So once upon a time, don't start with something ages ago, but focus on the here and now. This is something that I can highly recommend, because again, 2-minute video or 3-minute presentation is not a lot of time. What I stressed before, keep in mind, if you jump over the video hurdle and you have the presentation of 3 minutes, you also have the 2 minutes of Q&A. So raise awareness. If you get the feeling that you can't explain everything, not every detail, don't feel too bad, because aim for dialogue, aim for explanations afterwards, and also prepare quite well. How many questions can you answer, and how long is each answer in a Q&A session? But yes, you're on a date, so people have to be interested. They also have to get an idea that there's more, and there's more potential to actually, in a future collaboration, there could be a second, a third, and a fourth date. And maybe at the end, it's also a partnership, a vivid marriage coming out of that. So keep that in mind before you try to squeeze everything you have worked on in like 2 or 3 minutes. Be a little strategic and decide, what can I also explain maybe better in words? And where do I have to kind of hint for future collaboration, but maybe don't have to explain every scenario that is possible. Again, learning curve goes a little bit like with Once Upon a Time. Really explain also, where do you struggle? Where do you need help? Humans are usually happy to help, and it creates, again, a different kind of bond. So if you create empathy, and if whatever you do is authentic, this will enrich your presentation. People will understand way better that it's not just data and facts and figures or software programming. It's people you're talking about. It's also people that make mistakes, but people that learn from their mistakes. So this is something that I can always recommend. And if you fall, get up. If you're not 100% sure if you reached your limit, tell so and say, hey, we're working on, but we maybe need your support to do it. This would be the message towards the jury members, I guess. No fake stories, please. Unfortunately, I've seen it a lot as well. Like COVID-19 is a serious topic. I've also seen a lot of companies that are suddenly jumping on that topic, presenting facts and figures, but the situation on the front line looks different. So be authentic. Don't create stories if you're not sure that it's true. And also vanity metrics is usually something like, we talk to 50 people, but at the end, if you only talk to 5, I know 50 sounds better, but if only 5 were feasible during a hackathon, this is completely fine. People will understand that you aim for 50 people, but you didn't have the time to do it. So also think wisely, what do you want to prepare and want to present? And in case the jury has a question and you can't answer, be assured that it's not the most positive signal that goes for them. And again, keep in mind, this is also for the video. They won't watch video after video after video. They most likely also will repeat the video a couple of times. This is good, but they also might have a frozen screen at the end. Same goes for the presentation. During the Q&A, the 2-minute Q&A, since you will control the screen, because you are going to screen share, as far as I understood, it also means that the last slide will stay during 2 minutes. Think wisely what's on the last slide. Because again, while for 3 minutes you will run out of time, but then suddenly there is one key message that has, besides you talking, 2 minutes time to actually sink in. And this is something that I've seen a lot of people underestimating, but keep in mind the last slide is as important as all the other slides before. Don't lose the energy at the end, because again, this slide might stay, as I said, 2 minutes or even a little bit more. So it has the potential to sink in way better than all the other slides that you might have to move on quickly. And again, same goes for video. If there is something very, very important, give it a little bit of time to actually let it sink in and let it work. What we're not going to do is we're not going into performance, because I think this is something that goes along with kind of body language and what you do on stage. So we are not moving into that unless you want. But I would actually be more interested in, and this is the reason why I also stopped the sharing, to answer more questions or give you also the opportunity to explain a little bit more if you want to have individual sessions or if there are any questions from your side. It's all clear on the setup, right? Like the video, the slides, and everything else. You all know that now, right? Because this is the most important element here.
Yeah, for me it's clear.
Good.
Can I ask something? But I don't know. Maybe it's more useful if we do it one by one, because it could be a bit boring for the others. Because again, as I'm really new in this, what I didn't completely understand is how different the video and the presentation should be. Like, I don't understand if the video and the presentation should basically say the same, or why are we doing two things? Like, I'm not really getting this.
The setup is the following. There are a lot of teams that work on individual solutions, but it's a high number. So the video is basically the first kind of pre-selection. So it's also a time saver, and it also gives you an opportunity to actually structure your thoughts. So the video is 2 minutes, and it will be seen, and it could be seen repeatedly, but it needs all the core messages as well. What the video, of course, has is it's pre-produced. So there's no option to get a dialogue done, nothing you can explain. So this is something that you can redo, you can rush, you can condense. But the video is the element that is needed to actually reach the second step, reach the presentation. So it's a pre-selection tool. And because also you should have the time not to pitch twice or 3 times, and it's time saving, you produce it beforehand, you hand it in, and a group of people will watch it. But again, there will be no opportunity for you to explain. So the video needs to be self-explanatory. And I think this is the big difference to the slide deck. You will also have time between the video and the presentation. In that time, you might come up with even more ideas, or you bring your product even further. So in that 3-minute presentation, of course, you can set different kind of messages apart. You can also add information that you have been unable to squeeze into a 2-minute video. That additional minute also gives you the opportunity to add more stuff that you couldn't put into the video. But the core message, of course, should be the same. And again, I mean, the good thing about having the Q&A element at the end also means if there was any misunderstanding in a video, you don't even have the time to explain, and they won't give you a lot of feedback on that. But in the Q&A session, you also have the time to get feedback from the jury. I mean, you can also ask a question. Is that something that would be applicable in your situation? This could be a question that you ask even to the jury. So keep that in mind. The Q&A session gives you the opportunity. But if you don't jump over the hurdle of having a good video, you won't reach the Q&A session. So I think it's basically the same, that if the video is like 2 minutes, it might be 80% of the pitch, and then you have 20% more you can add to the slides later on when you present that. But in between, there's also time to work a little bit more on your idea, on your product. So you even might have more content to present. I think this is set up. What you should be aware is, again, there might not be a lot of technical issues with the video on the jury side, but if you have the live presentation situation, you need to ensure that your screen is right, the screen sharing with the presentation works, that everything on the presentation works, because you only get that one shot. In the video, you can actually use the video as as a trial and a test run for the presentation later on, because again, you all should aim for creating such a compelling video that you definitely have the pitch situation later on. So you'd all prepare after the video, after you hand over the video, you should all prepare the 3-minute presentation. Doesn't matter if you reach the group, if you kind of become part of the final or not, because even if you're not presenting, there might be a jury member coming back to you based on the video and says, you might not made it into the last 15, but I saw potential. Can you share what you've been working on? And I mean, it's also not the end at the hackathon. You use that kind of content that you created, the ideas you created. There are other hackathons. There are other organizations that are always looking for bright ideas like the ones you're working on. So for me, it's not just a video that is done for here and now, but it could be also presented via social media. You could, share it with colleagues. See that also as an opportunity, not just to exercise and be forced to jump over a hurdle, but produce something you're also proud of, so you can actually also share it as well. And in one of the last hackathons, for instance, Vision Health Pioneers was part of a jury. So one of the teams will get a wild card into our next incubator. Just saying. So there was not an immediate cash prize, but in our incubator, you can get up to 70,000 euros for a 9-month program for free. So you don't have to give up equity. And most hackathon teams are not ready to jump into an incubator right away. So when we start our incubator at the end of the year, that team might be ready to actually work on that product full time and needs that. So just keep in mind that there was something, and I saw a lot of amazing teams I definitely want to have in our incubator later on. So we will reach out to teams that didn't make it at the end, but provided something that is quite useful. Most of the sessions will be also shared via YouTube. So keep in mind, it's not just the jury you're talking to, it's fellow hackathon people. It's also YouTube, like the broad audience, and Data Natives has a lot of audience. So there might be also somebody else that is completely interested in what you're doing. And it's not just a jury member. So this is what I usually like, from my point of view, you always do the best you can. And yes, the technical setup is now do the video to reach the finals, but even the video as a standalone activity is something you can be proud of and you can share and you can work with in the future. Do you have trouble doing videos? I mean, there's always something like Zoom, you can record, and it's easily cuttable. You can have slides and have an animation and talk over that as a very simple video. But of course, you can also do complete animations of products and stuff like this. There's a wide range of video instruments you can use. Just saying that you don't have to do an Oscar video for that, but you can also use very simple tools. But I also know some teams that have that are struggling to actually know how to get started to do that video.
Yeah, this was my question. One of my questions is if you suggest any platform or tool, or how is the format? It's like we present the slides, we need to have an image of the speaker. I don't know. I have no experience with videos.
Yeah, I mean, it depends a little bit what technically is feasible for you. I mean, the simplest is for sure, if you have a situation like this, you can record Zoom, for instance. If you have your slides and somebody talks about it, this would work. I think this is the simplest version to have something like Zoom and do the pitch and have the narrative in the beginning and switch between screen sharing and not screen sharing. This is the simplest you can do, and it's the closest to the original pitch you will have. So there will be the biggest benefit. What you of course can also do is you can use, based on the screen sharing, not just your slide text, but you can also walk us a little bit through, let's say, the code or something like this. This could always work. This is what you can do. The other opportunity is if you do a video and you don't have slides for that video, of course you could simply record it with your cell phone camera. But it is always quite hard if you don't work in an offline situation if the team is not in one spot, and then if you have a data-driven topic, to actually just use you as a person explaining what it is. Usually having a mix between kind of shared slide on a screen and you as a person explaining, I would recommend as the best opportunity. You can also split your screen, for instance, and you know, have a situation where you are seen and the screens you are sharing are seen. Stuff like this, I think you can work with. But in most of the situations I had in the past, when you know you also don't have a lot of time to set up a complete TV studio at home, Zoom or Google Hangout and recording, and then you know making a little pretty, cutting the end and the beginning, and maybe also doing it several times, because Zoom also gives you the opportunity to do it as often as possible, to find the right kind of video. This worked wonders. Most likely will take you half an hour to an hour if you have a couple of trials, if you do a dry run without the video, but then you should be done. It could also be that only one of your team is doing it. And again, the beauty about that is for sure also, if you use the same slides that you want to present later on, it is a dry run for you as well for the original pitch situation. But again, it depends a little bit what's your technical capabilities as well.
I think it would be great if you could share some examples in YouTube, because you said that there are some videos that probably from other hackathons that
I'm also quite sure that Elena Data Natives could share some stuff, because this is something that has been done 2 weeks ago as well. So maybe also you, Elena, can share some example videos, maybe on the winning teams or something like this, so it's easier to get an understanding. And the pitch situation, again, it's basically something like what I did today. So, you know, making introduction at the beginning, then switching to screen sharing, using the screen sharing. During the screen sharing, it's always tough if you don't see the audience. But then, you know, also maybe little tricks, having a timer next to you. If during the screen share you lose time, the sense of timing, you don't really know how much time have I'm talking, you know, have a little, like you watch or something like this, you know, even your cell phone sitting there, just to give you an understanding, what's the time? Am I at 2 minutes or 2:45? What happens? Because there will be a signal at the end at like 3 minutes, and then you suddenly realize, whew, you know, I have 5 slides left. How do I wrap it up? Stuff like this. And again, you know, when you use Zoom, you can also practice quite easily. But I think it's important to also test the technical setup. If you do a video, do you need a microphone? Are the headsets okay? What's also super weird is if people sit there with these huge headsets. You know, the noise cancellation headsets are beautiful, but you look like an alien. So keep that in mind. It makes a difference. As I usually said to people on stage, you know, when you have a clicker and a microphone, you know, all these obstacles, I'm always standing if I do that stuff, because I feel better than kind of crouching on my couch. So maybe also it is the right situation. If, you know, I'm in my kitchen, maybe you don't like the setup. So, you know, all these small things make you feel better. And this is something, if you record the video via Zoom, if you do the presentation later on via Zoom, you know, somebody calling you, like in the case of Eleanor, just, you know, ensure that your cell phone is on mute. It's so simple. Sorry, Eleanor, but it's so simple, but I had it in all that situations. We had hackathons where the screen sharing didn't work because suddenly the screen was frozen because, you know, we also have people at hotspot, and after all the video conversations, it's not going to work. So keep that in mind. There are a lot of small things that you can set into place beforehand, so you can truly also enjoy the presentation. You should be proud of what you're doing, so you shouldn't be interrupted by silly stuff. So it should be your moment to shine. You should have fun creating the video. And this is what I would like to see as a jury as well. You know, is it a team that is kind of working so hard and under pressure and they don't really enjoy it anymore? Or do they still want to do something and, you know, they're part of a team and they have fun and they smile? So I expect you to actually also smile, even if it's hard, do it. But, you know, this is what I can say. But Elena, if you share some of the examples, I think it makes it easier for you as well to get a better understanding. And again, send your draft videos over so we can have a look, or if you need any kind of other feedback, let us know, because there's still time to reshape your video or your presentation. That's what we're here for. And I'm available on Slack, so you can basically send me a Slack message if you need. But there are also other mentors that can give you feedback as well. Let's say Bart that is joining in a couple of minutes. Like, he's a seasoned jury member. He was a jury member of our incubator as well. So he has seen a lot of presentations. He can immediately grasp what's important. And all these mentors are basically your kind of mini jury in the beginning.
Another question I have is about the setting of the presentation, not the video. It will be in the Zoom. Is it supposed that the captain will make the presentation? How about, are you
It's up to you. It's up to you, whoever you want to appoint as a presenter. It doesn't have to be the captain.
No. Okay. And I guess that he presents in session with other people, with the jury, and the other members could participate as well for the QA session.
Exactly.
Okay.
One recommendation from my side as well. Everything is in English, right? Keep in mind, if you have a very strong accent, it might take a little bit time for everybody to understand in the beginning. For the females here, if there are 15 pitches and there are 12 male people pitching, it might be a visual difference to have a female presenting, different voice. Use that to your advantage. It sounds silly, but everything that gives the brain of the jury a break is good. There's even a stylistic element in the beginning, not to have the first slide saying, but having a black slide, just a black slide, so the eye and the brain of a jury can relax. It could be also a white one. But so there's nothing on that slide for a couple of seconds in the beginning before you start the presentation, so they can also mentally switch from one presentation to the other. So they have a mental break. There's no element on the screen that they have to process in their brains. So just saying stuff like this, there are little tricks you can use. And I don't want to be negative and want to kick the guys out of presentations, but it's fact that there might be a lot of males presenting, and as soon as there is a difference for the eye and the ear, you will also stick out. And I think what Elena and her team is also doing is, based on the videos you presented, the ones that are going to present the slides will also have a presentation order. So it also makes sense to mix the topics and the problems. So it's not one problem and one solution after the other, that they're so similar. So it's a little bit easier for the jury to also differentiate, so they don't have to listen to the same stuff for like 15 minutes and it's all the same. So they can also kind of, have different pictures in their head. But this is something, of course, will be also the job from the data natives team to give you that kind of opportunity. And at the end, if you're the last to pitch, this is not bad. If you think, oh my gosh, I'm the last one and the jury is tired. A lot of people work with short-term memory way better than with long-term memory. There will be different people sitting in the jury, so they will pick out the topics that are closest to them, and it could be pitch 6 or it could be pitch 12. It could be the pitch 1, even if it's the first one and feels like 60 minutes ago. What's relevant and emotional sticks to people. It doesn't matter when it is presented. So this was not my 2 cents, but in case you have any questions, you find me in the HackCorona Slack channel. Or you ask Elena, she knows where I am. In my kitchen, apparently. Good. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you.
I'm based in Berlin, by the way, so I'm kind of, there's 1 hour time difference in case you have any questions. So my timing is slightly different than the ones from, I think, Greece.
So not after 11 p.m.
yeah, it depends. But good. So I wish you luck. I hope you have fun. There's still a little work to do. And I keep my fingers crossed, and I'm definitely zooming in to, literally zooming in to the finals. And I'm also watching the YouTube here and there. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, keep working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao, guys.
Bye,
Ciao.
thank you.
So we have another session happening, and actually it's happening in this room. However, it's going to be in half an hour. So we can mute everything and just stay here and wait, or we can turn this off and then come back again. Those are the two suggestions that I would suggest. Do you want to come back at 2:30?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
The next session is about what?
So we have a session about open source AI medical supplies or resources. So it's about healthcare infrastructure and open source AI.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We can conclude this session, and then if you are interested, you can come back later. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, guys. Good luck.
Thank
Ciao.
you.
Bye.